What is up, guys? I got NotTheWorst here, bringing another Black Desert online video, and today we are taking a look at another PvE guide. We are looking at the Awakening Dark Knight build after the class reboots. I know a lot of people were really looking forward to this one right after I dropped the Succession one. Spent enough time trying out different things till I found a point where I really liked it. So it's time to go ahead and release it. As always with these things, before we jump into add-ons and skill rotation and my thoughts on this, just to point out, these are just kind of what I found that's going to work best for me. You can modify these things. The skill rotation is built around at any AP level. I actually developed a really nice rotation that is seamless in that you can start from the beginning, go all the way through it, and all of your cooldowns will be back up in the meantime without having to use silly things like Touch of Exploitation for no reason other than waiting on cooldowns. So we've kind of built it around not having to wait on cooldowns and going from there. Obviously at higher AP levels, or if you're at a spot where you have high AP for that particular zone, you're going to modify it to what's going to fit for you, and you'll see that in the examples when we cover that. And of course, if you're going to tweak things, I just recommend you make sure your add-ons match up with your skill rotation. You want to have particular buffs up at certain times, and make sure you're not just like only using the skill add-ons and then not the rotation, or you're only using the rotation but not with the skill add-ons, because like I always say, those two should really be running hand in hand. You literally pick the skill add-ons to be built around how your skill rotations. So if you're going to modify one, you should also modify the other one going from there. But with that said, let's go ahead and jump into what I've been using, starting off with the skill add-ons. Okay, so going through these from the list here, the one thing to point out is you'll see that we have exactly the same setup on Trap of Adir and Cluster of Despair. The reason for this is they're tier 3 add-ons. Corrupt Ground also is a tier 3 add-on, unfortunately with a 20-second cooldown. It doesn't really make a lot of sense to try and force it into the positioning. I'd rather have things like movement speed on Twilight Dash to just go pack to pack, a little more important at a spot like, let's say, Bloody Monastery than it would be at Orcs, because they're much more dense, but you can adjust those accordingly. But making Corrupt Ground work, tried it, doesn't work at 20-second cooldown, just not very well. So these you're going to be using to open in your skill rotation, alternating them. They have a 12-second cooldown, and of course the ones I chose to put on here were our monster damage and attack speed. Attack speed is actually probably the most important in this. Having that extra 3% attack speed is massive, over a 7% attack speed from tier 2 compared to most of your other options for difference, like 20 monster damage versus 30 monster damage. Not nearly as huge as that 3% attack speed. How can you test this? Well, do you test that sort of thing? If you happen to have the new glorious crystals in your awakening weapon, take those off and see if you can feel that difference, and you absolutely will, and so will your trash loot as well, and that's a 2% difference. So very important there. We're going to alternate these so that we have them up, since they are each 12-second cooldown time for them. With only 7 seconds, we have 5 seconds of downtime within that time frame. So we're kind of work around that. One pack we use Trap, one pack we'll use Cluster to kind of maintain that going up. Spirit Legacy, pretty standard for this one. We got DP minus 15 to stack alongside the DP along with this. We do have Vidir's Strike, which is the flow to airstrike that we actually are going to use for a particular purpose in the skill rotation, which we'll jump into a little bit later. That one also has minus 20 DP on it. Not the skill on effect, just the actual skill itself has that, the same as Spirit Legacy, so you'll have that one on either way. Regardless of that, I did put human damage on Seed of Catastrophe with a little all evasion rate, minus 4%. This is more geared towards, say, Bloody Monastery, as that particular spot, 1, has human damage, and 2, has pretty high accuracy requirements along with it. A little bit of accuracy juice and critical hit damage on Shattering Darkness, as the 3 skill chain through that does quite a bit of damage, and we've got a lot of critical hit rate, 100%, so you're going to definitely get some extra mileage out of a little bit of a damage on there, and plus we don't really have anything else. You do see that I have another attack speed on Twilight Dash. This is just because of how I personally use it. I usually use that to clean up between mobs from one pack to another that have just a little bit of HP left or something like that. So this will pretty much kill them. I'll get the movement speed off of the skill itself for Twilight Dash, plus movement speed off of the add-on on there, and it allows me to start up my beginning of my skill rotation, kind of the setup skills. Will have that bonus attack speed without having to jump immediately into Trap of Adir or Cluster, should I choose to. Putting attack speed or even monster damage on something else to try and maintain, since we do have a 5-second downtime using this setup. It gets a little bit tricky depending on how fast you clear, because a tier 2 add-on will not overwrite a tier 3 add-on. So what that means is Cluster of Despair, as you'll see later on, this one I prefer to use Trap of Adir to set up your tier 3 add-ons, because the time it takes you to actually do the animation to when it triggers your skill add-ons, you can pretty much jump right into it, so you actually have 7 seconds of usage. Unfortunately, Cluster of Despair, even when you animation cancel the startup animation to it, still takes about 1.5 seconds of your skill add-on time, And at only 7 seconds, that feels kind of not great. So you can try and work another tier 2 add-in for attack speed or monster damage or whatever it is that you've chosen to go with the tier 3 to try and cover that. You just have to be really cognizant of it. If you have 1 second left of your tier 3 add-ons from, say, Cluster of Despair, and you actually use the skill that triggers the tier 2 add-on, it's not going to overwrite it, and in 1 second you'll just have no attack speed. So kind of pay attention to that. I actually did have some iterations where I was putting tier 2 add-ons on other skills to try and make that work, but it was actually more of a headache trying to manage that and paying attention, and then like you almost feel like, oh, I don't want to use this skill. Like, yes you do, just use the skill and keep going. So I removed it and kept it this way. At my AP anyways, honestly, it was a non-issue. Like, to have 7 seconds of uptime was more than enough time to clear packs, clearing them about 6 seconds or less, so not an issue, but you may run into that depending on where you're grinding and what kind of gear you're working with. So there you have it for the skill add-ons. Just to reiterate, you know, this isn't the end-all be-all for what you have to run. This is just what's going to work with the skill rotation after some testing for it. Let me jump into the skill rotation. Let's go through that and cover some different things and some other things you can choose to edit if you want to. Alright, so we're ready to roll with the skill rotation. I'm going to cover the skill rotation in its entirety. I'm going to point out a few things that you can change. I just want to reiterate that this skill rotation was specifically designed to have 100% uptime on each of your skills in it. So even if you feel like you want to edit some things, you'll even see in the demonstration towards the end of the video that I don't necessarily use this verbatim as it is, because at my AP level that wasn't necessarily required. However, this will cover you at any AP level, because I'll put some examples in where you pull multiple packs in one, or you have 2 packs pulled. Some of the mobs died a little quicker than the others, and another pack started pulling, so you want to extend the rotation. This will allow you to keep this rotation up entirely. So to start off with for it, we are going to lead with our setup skills along that. So we may have pulled with Slanted Balance, you can pull with Shadow Strike, you can pull with the Shift F Grip of Grudge, which I actually found myself doing that quite a bit. Whatever you're going to pull with there, and then we're going to use whichever tier 3 add-on that we have up at the time. Strongly recommend going Trap of Vidir, as mentioned before. You'll have a little bit better uptime on your tier 3 add-ons when you do, but Cluster of Despair is going to be used just as much as well. So we're going to set up our tier 3 add-on and have that land. The next thing we're going to do is we're actually going to Shadow Bullet. Why? Because it is a very quick switch into Pre-Awakening, and we want to get Unveiled Dagger, and we have a couple other skills we're going to use in that meantime. Currently, and I don't know, at the time of recording, I don't know that this will be fixed later on, there's a little bit of a bug between when you Shadow Bullet and then go into Unveiled Dagger. You kind of can't. It worked this time. Okay. It doesn't always, and at first I thought it was when the Shadow Bullet lands on a mob, but it's not. So you can't always do it for whatever reason. It's just kind of buggy with it, although it's working every single time right this second. It may just be like when it hits a mob, the Shadow Bullet, the Unveiled doesn't always go through right away. So to kind of circumvent that, after your tier 3, you'll Shadow Bullet, and then you can Air Strike to Vidir Strike and get the Unveiled Dagger there. This again is also going to help with cooldown management if you need it a little bit. If you can just get the Unveiled and it's going to work for you 100 times, 100% of the time, you can definitely go for that, skip over the airstrike. The damage is nothing like Succession's Vidir Strike, so it's definitely not required to go ahead and pick that up. But moving forward, so we'll go ahead and go through these skills here, get our Unveiled, and then from here we're going to Spirit Hunt, Spirit Legacy, Seed with a Flow, all 3 of Shattering Darkness, and then right after this one we're going to Dark Nebula. Now notice we're not using the animation cancel Dark Nebula. 2 reasons for this. 1, again, this rotation was built around 100% uptime across the board, and 2, the way Dark Nebula works, it actually is going to do more damage this way. As you can see, although it was changed with the reboots to do an equal amount of damage on the first attack and second attack, when you do that animation cancel, you're going to get that second attack of 1341 times 5, so that startup animation where it's kind of charging right there, that won't hit them. You'll just get the explosion piece, that second part, which is totally fine in some instances, but again, if you want that 100% uptime for it, you're going to be using that. So after our Dark Nebula, we're going to throw another Spirit Hunt in from here. We can Twilight Dash, Spirit Blaze if we need to. At this point, we're just in cleanup stage, whatever skills you may need to clean up. After that last Flow Spirit Blaze, personally, I don't typically use the regular Spirit Blaze. I just hotkey the Flow and go from there. Again, you can if you need to. You're going to have everything back up on your skills from that point. So I probably wouldn't tier 3 add-on again. I'd save it for the next pack pull. But if you go through everything here, all the way into long Dark Nebula, and we Spirit Hunt, and we Twilight Dash. If we give it a Spirit Blaze, guess what? Everything's back up now, so I can immediately go right back into the combo. Actually, missed the Spirit Hunter, but that's okay. Go right back into the combo, and again, we just have 100% uptime so that we can run this as much as we want without worrying about, are my cooldowns up? I typically don't use the Spirit Hunt right after I go straight into Legacy myself, which is why you're seeing me do that in testing there. So you have 100% uptime on this. Now, a couple things to edit is something that I just mentioned there. In the likelihood that your AP is plenty so that you're not having to go through a skill rotation twice on a single pack for it, I don't actually like the Spirit Hunt very much right after the Unveiled Dagger. Why? Well, because we have our tier 3 add-on attack speed up, right? We've got our Unveiled Dagger up. As soon as that's up, I want to burn through my high damage skills as quickly as I can, because on Unveiled Dagger, you can see it just went down there. It's only got 5 seconds of uptime, and using that Spirit Hunt skill in there, it does have a little bit of kind of a delay. It doesn't feel quite as smooth moving into it. So if you find that you don't need to be putting that Spirit Hunt in there to keep that 100% uptime, because in all likelihood you should be killing mobs faster than a single pack, you can go immediately into Spirit Legacy right there, you see. And then towards the end as well, you can Twilight Dash, and then I said I'll Spirit Blaze just to clean up the end of the skills there. I don't actually use the first windup for it, but you could if you wanted to. Is Touch of Exploitation a skill you could use? Yes, the damage is not great, so unless you're trying to use the forward guard, or you want to linger the second hit for a lingering forward guard or something there, I mean, you can do it. Obviously, you do have pre-awakening skills. They're just not super impressive, and most people nowadays want to try to stay out of pre-awakening as much as you can, so this gives you that ability of doing that just by getting that Unveiled Dagger, and then, like I said, just skip over that Spirit Hunt if you're able to on the uptime, so you're immediately jumping into these high damage skills. Second thing you can do to kind of modify this a little bit, again, if your AP allows for it, you're a little bit more up there, or you're just grinding a lower spot than normal, is we can go ahead and use the animation cancel Dark Nebula. This is going to be, again, if you don't need to kind of extend the combo out and you just want to get a little bit faster damage, this also will pump out a little bit better damage during that Unveiled Dagger, very short uptime of. So if we want to do that, and then also not include the early on Spirit Hunt, so we're just absolutely maximizing mass damage very quickly all at once, it's going to look a little like this. We'll go in, we're going to Unveil Dagger, and then I'm going to go ahead and immediately use the animation canceled version. So you can see from here, my Unveil Dagger was up that entire time, up until you would then Spirit Hunt Twilight Dash towards the end there. I accidentally RMB'd and clicked cluster, because that happens. Animation cancel on cluster. So you can definitely do that as well to burn through some damage there. That's going to be really your call from there. The skill add-on build is going to work perfectly around these, regardless of what route you want to go with those. If you do need the combo extension, you can run with that. If you want to just get that mass damage jumped out and move on to the next pack, and you've got the AP to handle that for where you're grinding, absolutely go for that, and totally up to you with how you want to do it. And of course, you can move these around for whatever works best, or what you find is just more comfortable for you. You get kind of used to it. Once you've done that a few times, the Shadow Bullet into the Airstrike, Vidir Strike just becomes like second nature, and you don't even think about it at that point. So yeah, you'll just kind of get it into muscle memory, and it just absolutely happens. The Shift Q Dark Nebula, it is nice, even if you do have the AP, to kind of not have to animation cancel it, just because the damage is pretty good, especially if once you're in, you know, an Elvia zone and you pick an Elvia weapon, like, you're just going to use that as an independent skill to one-shot packs from there, so you can stick with that. So that is the skill rotation and the add-ons covered. As far as my thoughts on this, overall, I know that this video is coming out and we have some succession, sort of some buffs, but mostly some things coming back, some PvE crit coming back to Wheel of Fortune, Lunacy Vidir, and Twilight Dash, which is going to be very big for succession. Overall, it's also getting a little bit of damage added to Ravage Rake, and it is getting 50% PvE crit on Corrupt Ground, which obviously both builds can use. In general, this class feels pretty similar to Succession as far as the trash loot that I was pulling. At my AP, it's slightly higher in Succession was what I was doing. Obviously, with the buffs coming to Succession, that's going to help it a little bit more. In most cases, places where it feels pretty similar if you're at like Bloody Monastery, because you can run more human damage crystals in that zone. If you rely more on like Trap of Vidir to actually land on the dudes to get hit rate, you could potentially hit around the same, maybe even a little higher than Succession at that type of zone for it. And then also just depending on where your AP is at, you know, like for instance, I happen to be 309, 307, there's an extra bracket out of Awakening. So, you know, independently, I don't know, orcs with something with like a weapon maybe might feel slightly better for you there. I can tell you Succession just feels like less work, as you can see, and you'll definitely see in the demos, you feel like you're pressing a lot more keys because you likely are. It looks really cool, so I can't argue with that with you. It just feels like you're getting the same, if not a little bit better trash out of Succession by just doing like way less work, and I mean way less work than everything else. So yeah, very flashy, looks very flashy. I actually ended up having to turn the DPI down on my mouse specifically in Awakening because of all the backflipping and things that happen, but that was just kind of a personal thing. But yeah, you're running either set, Awakening, Succession, you're going to be fine either way. They're pretty similar enough that it's not as polarizing as, say, like a class's like Nova, Succession, Awakening, where, you know, you're really hurting yourself playing one in PvE and not the other for it, as one is the best and one is one of the absolute worst classes. understanding. That's not the case with DK. You can absolutely run either one, whichever you like, and just go for it, have some fun. It is a lot of fun to play. I will say the Succession playstyle feels a little bit more boring for it, as you just have like longer animations that are just dealing a lot of damage, so you don't feel like you're doing as much. So if you like the feel of a little bit higher APM bouncing off the walls and stuff with your shattering skills and what have you from there, then Awakening might be the setup for you. And again, it's super pretty to watch, so it just feels really cool doing that. So with that said, I'm going to go ahead and run some demonstration just of me grinding at Bloody Monastery towards the end, so you can check out the skill rotation in action, and then kind of a real-world idea of what happens with what you're actually using for skills and when is how far down in the actual rotation you would need to go. So if you did enjoy the video, be sure to like it. If you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe so you get notifications when new videos do go live. And if you'd like to catch me playing live, there's a link to my Twitch page in the description down below. Jump on over there, drop a follow so you get notifications for that as well. With that said, that's going to be it for this one. I want to thank everybody for watching, and I will see you next time.